Hello everyone, my name is Meghan LeVota, and on my channel I make a lot of videos about using personality typology for self-growth and understanding others. I'm here with Nate Rasa, who's an ENFP. How's it going, Nate?
Been doing quite all right. Still quite all right.
All right. Yeah, that's
quite all right.
I need to stop asking that because I need a better thing to ask, but it's just sort of like I want to ask how people are doing, but also like, are you doing okay?
Yes, we're doing fine. We're doing okay, good, great, yes.
Oh gosh. Yeah, so anyway, I was just talking to Nate. I was interviewed for his podcast, or actually his Patreon special club.
Yes, the exclusive club, yeah.
Exclusive.
Yes. Because it's
So
fancy, it's
if you
special.
didn't catch that, it's exclusive. So
Yes. I mean, if you want to check it out, go for it. It was really good.
yeah, so I'll have that link below. But anyway, I was just talking to Nate, and I thought I'd make a quick video about, since Nate is an ENFP and I am an ENFJ, and one of the top questions that I get on my channel is the difference between the ENFP and ENFJ. And Nate and I actually did a video about that was like I think almost 2 hours long about
We did,
like all the differences.
And did I take notes on that? Like I took a whole page of pre-notes.
You were prepared. The ENFP had notes, and the ENFJ just totally winged it. So that just goes to show you how you can't just look at the stereotypes and assume that, oh, every J is going to be like this and every P like this. But anyway, you could check that out if you want. But what I really want to talk about is just a few tips for ENFPs to get along better with ENFJs, and also vice versa. Because for those of you who didn't know, on June 28th, I am hosting a workshop about how to get along with the types. And so we're going to talk about each of the 16 types, and there'll be time for you to ask questions and also share your experiences as well. So that will be, that will link below. But really, I just think that one of the best things about type is how it can help people get along. Have you noticed that in your experience with type?
Well, what I would say my position on type as of lately has been that, one, while we're always being told that communication is key in a lot of relationships, I found that communication style lends to a more successful interaction and a more successful kind of result. So a lot of what type does is they arm you with a set of jargon, and if you know another person's type, you also are now open to the set of words, the set of values, the set of things that they might be kind of going off of. And by understanding them, you could also understand their side better. And if you could, match yourselves, pick your battles, compromise, that can be more efficient once you be able to understand and become aware that another person is different from you.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And would you agree too that without knowing type, that most humans assume that people are more similar, or do you think it depends on the person?
I tend to think that a lot of folks operate off of the perception that their own self-perception is correct. I think we tend to be a little self-delusional for most of our time. I think we're kind of conditioned to believe in whatever it is we've consumed as a kid, and then that's what we're projecting into the world. So I think it's actually kind of interesting why there's a lot of miscommunication, a lot of arguments, especially once you leave your family unit, let's say, and you weren't exposed to different opinions as a kid, that you suddenly are now arguing, debating with people online, and you're not understanding where they're coming from, and you're like, wait a minute. But then from another person's point of view, they could see you both are coming onto the same thing, just not really hitting each other on the same wavelength.
Yes. And would you agree? I just was thinking that it seems like most people, whether they know type or not, they have the understanding that people have different values, people have different worldviews, and they make different decisions, come from different backgrounds. But I don't think people realize just how different some people process the world than other people.
Especially if you haven't been exposed to it. As to a specific, let's say going into type, the specific function. I don't think people, like, let's say for me, if I wasn't exposed to enough NI, maybe I wouldn't be, keen on being able to deal with some of the NI user statements, let's say.
Okay, so here's actually a good question for both of us. But I'm realizing, so before I knew type, I, like, looking back and retroactively typing a lot of my friends from middle school and high school, there are quite a few like ENFPs that I've been friends with. in which growing up, I thought that we were way more similar than we actually were. And I don't know if you've ever had this experience with an ENFJ, like prior to knowing type at all, or if you
Mm-hmm.
have known any ENFJs in real life, like prior to knowing type. But I feel like there's this projection that I could make, that an ENFJ could make onto an ENFP about what they are, that is inaccurate, and like vice versa. So like,
Mm-hmm.
for example, since a lot of my external behavior is similar to what an ENFP's external behavior might be, then I might view an ENFP and think they just seem so lost. Oh my goodness, I feel so bad for them. They seem just so overwhelmed and like so unsure of where to go. Or like, that's like a projection I can sort of make just based on
Mm-hmm.
like the way that NE is, or even like, oh wow, like they're just really stuck in a sad spot right now. I feel so bad for them. I
Yeah.
should let them know. I should let them know that I'm here to talk to them because they seem really down on themselves right now. And oh wow, like they have all these walls up. Like I need to like show them that, you know, I love them or something. Like I don't know. Like you can kind of like FE and NI can sort of project that the NE is lost, or that there's something wrong with it, or that there's something wrong with FI for having all these walls up. And like, oh
Mm.
no, what's wrong? Why aren't you sharing? Why aren't you talking with me?
That's funny
So
because I can draw a parallel with that from my
yeah,
NEFI to projection onto
yeah,
NFJs.
yeah. What's that
Because
like?
that's it's very much like, oh, why is this person staying with this other person for too long? It doesn't make sense for them to. There's no reason for them to stay. Like, why are they giving themselves so much to this other person? I thought everybody is their own person. Why are they so giving? It's very quick on the small mini judgments like that of just, oh, doesn't she not realize she's pretending to be something she's not? Like, it's very
Yeah,
or
yeah.
is it like, oh, why doesn't she understand that there's an alternative to a situation? Why is she so determined that this has to be the way when it isn't? Again, projecting, because we see, like you said, how externally you might come off kind of like an ENFP.
Mm-hmm.
And as an ENFP, like I'm trying to retroactively think of myself as back in my high school time or my
Mm.
elementary time when I'm thinking of this answer, because now it is armed with the knowledge now. It doesn't really make sense to have those thinking thoughts anymore. But anyways, retroactively putting myself in that situation, I would like start thinking, oh, well, if she's similar to me, why is she so determined or focused onto some certain things when I don't see the point in having to maintain those things when we're busy doing other things? It's doesn't seem to make sense. Like, why are we chasing after this particular cause when the cause is merely part of, you have to look for more, there's not enough information, let's say.
That's so interesting, because then like the ENFJ response to that is, or the parallel to that would be an ENFJ being like, oh no, this person hasn't found their mission. Oh no, they're still
I can
looking
see
for
us
it.
in high school arguing to no end. Like, let's be real. If I had to time travel back in time, we would not be friends.
Yeah. I
Because
feel like,
the frustration I would have.
yeah, although like I think though in high school I was lost. I didn't know my mission. So I don't know if I was as determined. But yeah,
Oh
like I feel
gosh.
like the ENFJ sort of assumption is that everyone is looking for that place for them to belong. Everyone is looking for the purpose in life, the reason why they're here, and everyone
Mm.
is on their own path to find it and all of that.
Oh,
So,
another complaint I would have would be, why do we have to
yeah.
talk about our feelings so much? It's like,
Yeah.
why do we have to sit here and talk about it? Where we're like, we already know what we're feeling, don't we? And I think that's a projection that FI has on people, that we
Mm,
forget that people don't do that. Some folks don't do that. We don't. Sometimes
yeah.
we just assume that people have, like, we just go and do our own thing, and flesh out our feelings at a better time, or privately or something. But then we shame others for being expressive for their own feelings. It's like, why do we do that when we have to understand that there are the people in the world who operate under different frameworks, different concepts,
That's
anything.
something I said in the INFP video of Synchronic Saturdays. Is I said, I think that FI users would really be shocked to understand the extent to which FE and TI can be in denial of their own feelings.
Mm.
Because is that hard for you to imagine?
I always know what I'm feeling. Which is like I think the only FI thing I can definitely relate to for most of the descriptions. I always know how I feel before I enter any room. That's already pre-decided, pre-done. I don't really have my feelings will change after I go to this party. It's like I already know.
Oh, see, there's been many times where I'm not sure if I want to go to a party because I'm not sure if it's one of those things where I'm going to be more overwhelmed when I'm there or if I'm going to perk up when I'm there.
Ah, yeah, that's why I would say I really value the FE take on this, because a lot of the times I come to parties after having like say a huge fight with my parents or something, and I'm pre-upset, and I've made my boundary clear. I'm gonna be upset, but then my friends who are of the FETI axis will look at me and be, "Hey, why are you letting yourself ruin the mood of other people around you when you don't have to?" It's like you can worry about
Yeah.
these things later, or will you solve it today by asking everybody to solve it with you? Can you do that? And the answer is no, because you don't have FE to ask and go for it. So we'll sit there and fester.
Yeah. Like I feel like I've noticed, at least with me, and I don't know if other FE users would relate, but sometimes if I'm in a bad mood, I really need to go do something and get my mind off of it, because if I'm alone too long without doing something else or exposing myself to other FE emotions, then I can actually just be overthinking and
Mhm.
worrying. And so, like, if there was ever a time when you were in a bad mood and you like were trying to set a boundary of like, I'm not going, like, I need to be alone, like
Yeah.
every time I try and do that, it's like sometimes I just end up worrying about something that I can't change, and
Well,
it's
that's the
like
thing, because yours is TI, right? It's
yeah,
certain
yeah,
goes in, it's filtered through that lens. I remember with my
yeah,
friend, my best friend, the ESFJ, whenever she goes through moods, you can't convince her that it's incorrect to feel that way or something, or that you need to change the mood, because for
yeah,
her, the answer is put her in a better place. The mood will then lift, but because that doesn't always happen, the TI of her asking questions constantly, I mean, it's infuriating for me because I don't have TI, but also it's just interesting to note as well, because it's like, oh, she wants answers and she wants solutions. And that
yeah,
doesn't always coincide with my exploratory, let's say, temperament, that I would rather, like, I like to talk about anything. So it could go from dark, sad, happy, anything. But then for her, that's uncomfortable, because why would you go through this roller coaster? Because for her, she's like riding the FI roller coaster. But then for me, it's not a
yeah,
roller coaster. It's just there.
yeah. How often do you feel like, um, I feel weird. I'm not sure why I feel so weird.
Barely.
Okay,
I
that's
would
like
say
me all the
barely,
time.
because because I've come across the conclusion that, well, I am weird. So that's done. That's like the TE's been like, well, we
Oh
thankfully,
man.
congratulations, you're weird, yay. So we can now focus on the job at hand. I
So yeah,
I
there's
yeah.
oftentimes, most of the time I know like what I feel, but I feel an obligation to figure out what I feel.
Mhm.
But like it's like NI that sees it.
I do want to reiterate though, like
Mhm.
to make this more clear, it's a little different from knowing what you want, because I feel like that's a little different of a concept, because both types can know what they want. Um,
That's actually a really good point, because I think that whenever what I was just saying, as far as like, oh, I can use my NI to figure it out, I think that's
yeah,
actually more in line with what I want.
because like let's put it this way, NFPs can know what they feel, but they don't always know how to act on what they want. So that kind of, we have trouble being assertive sometimes, and putting ourselves out
Hmm.
there becomes a bit of an issue, because we can't always assert our FI desires or wants, because again, it's personal to us, so it comes off odd to other people's ears. Whereas FE can assert it quickly, because they know what is to translate their feelings into the reality, because
Hmm.
they're tied to reality very
Yeah.
closely. For me, instead, what's easier as an ENFP is the NE is easier to extrapolate from reality. So that's what I'm
Do
used to
you
doing.
agree that FE users, or that anyone improving their FE, do you agree? Because I've wondered before if FE is connected to knowing how to get the solution of an improved emotion for you, which could be like knowing how to achieve happiness or achieve like the thing you want.
I mean,
But
just yeah, actually, I would say yes to that, because I feel as though that we as FI users, we kind of deny ourselves the opportunity to feel more. It's what I think. I feel like we like to hold on to feelings um, in situations, and we're not always in tune to the moment. Or sometimes
Mm-hmm.
even if we were in tune into the moment, we will ignore other feelings for the sake of whatever it is we're feeling right then and there. So it's again kind of like a similar
That's
situation when
very
it comes
true.
to perceiver types like NE versus NI. Sometimes like I arguing that there are alternatives that NI doesn't see, and then NI is going, why can't you just see the main idea,
So you
converging from all
said
the
that a
points?
feeling now in the moment could sort of make you forget about another feeling.
Yeah, so that could be, for example, like let's go say the party situation. If I was already pre-decided that I'm gonna dislike everything because I hate everything, right? Let's just put it that way. Like I just don't like
Mm-hmm.
anything and I don't feel like going. An FE user in my life, and this has been proven at least from my experience, would convince me that, hey, you're on a weekend, work doesn't start till Monday, it's a Friday night. Why don't you just have fun with us and not have to think about your feelings like that?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas we want you here, we want to enjoy this with you, and you're just going, and we planned this kind of thing. Whereas like, right,
Yeah.
like you don't have to bring in your sour mood to the room, and it's like, and then afterwards we can talk about it, and
Mm-hmm.
like I'm here for that. And I'm like, I actually kind of agree with this because it's a shift of priorities. Almost, it's almost like a concept of understanding where we put ourselves in a pedestal. It helped, at least for me, not to be super self-absorbed in a way.
Yes, because I think that FE naturally puts its own feelings into perspective like all the time. And so that's actually mind blowing the way you put that. I was like, one feeling might make you forget another. It reminds me of something I talked to Crystal about actually, where like she could be upset about a guy and feel like her life is over. And then I remember saying something like, well, what about your career that you love? Well, what about your friends that you
I
love?
love that.
And like she says that that was actually helpful for her to change her mindset. But if I were to respond like, why are you worried about that, like, then she would have felt more upset. But if I were,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, I like that because I would
Mm-hmm.
connect that with, I tweeted about this recently. I
Mm-hmm.
do not think FI is about authenticity. I think it's about seeking authenticity. That's why we're so busy trying to find identities, trying to be so self-absorbed with our own feelings, because we're focused on trying to find it. Whereas FE people, they don't have to find it. They can see it plain and simple in front of them. I would say a lot of FE users tend to wear their heart on their sleeves because it's not that hard to express themselves, especially FE DOMs. FE auxiliaries might be a little bit more on the private side, but it's still, the goal is, or the end result is still the same from what I understand. But with FI, it's why we have such a bad habit of being so focused on our own feelings, because we don't, maybe this is a polar TI of me to say, or a bad TI of me to say, but yes, we know what we're feeling, but we don't know how to express it
Yeah. Or maybe what to
properly,
do with it,
or
or
what to do
maybe
with it,
how to prioritize it compared to
how
the
to solve it.
others.
For us, that we feel it, we have to feel it, but then it's like, it often comes at the price of without somebody. Whereas Effie is like, why does it have to be without somebody? I'm right here, we can work this out, type of
I
thing.
guess for me too, it seems like if I can get stuck on a feeling, where if I get stuck for too long, to me, that means that maybe I need help in some way, or maybe there's something that I can't solve on my own.
Well, you guys mentioned, and I'm going to add you and Joyce with this. Shout out to
Mm-hmm.
Joyce. The intensity of an emotion after the moment has passed fades with
Mm-hmm.
FE. For us, it doesn't. For FI, it intensifies with each distance. It intensifies with each time goes by. Like I still very much vividly remember very dark memory, like dark feelings, but I can also vividly remember very positive, happy feelings. Like those don't leave me. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny because dating an FJ now, it the way that we have fight kind of mirrors my parents growing up, as my parents as ESFJ and ENFJ, is that every fight is we're solving something, we're learning something about each other, but we can
Mm-hmm.
like get expressive for a moment, but then once it's solved, it's solved. We don't like hold on to a lot of resentment about a time that we were upset, because we both are able to express what we're feeling. And then once we know, oh, the other person's feeling this way, then the feeling like dissipates kind of.
Yeah. See, and that's what I would say is something very cool and awesome when I'm interacting with FJs. I mean, like that being said, I'm the guy that my best friend's an FE Dom, right? This is something I had to
Mm-hmm.
learn and appreciate, especially in the beginning parts of our friendship, because at the time I didn't really understand what made them tick, what made you guys it's so interesting, or what made you guys act the way you do, or what makes you guys emote the way you do. And I'm like, huh, but it doesn't seem consistent with what I'm feeling inside. So why is it you guys
Yeah.
can operate in certain ways that seems unpredictable? And then you realize, oh, because they don't have FI, they're
Yeah, and you
operating
guys
with
seem
TI.
so unpredictable to me. So to kind of get into some advice here at the end, I just want to say that everything that we've kind of discussed here, I feel like really shows that we both have done our homework when it comes to the cognitive functions
Hey, I hate
in
FE for all
terms
the right reasons. Okay.
yeah, in terms of like
Because I
yeah,
love FE at the core. I really do. But I gotta say, you guys make it hard.
yeah, and same. And the very first video I ever did about ENFPs, I said something like, can't live with them, can't live without them, or
There
something.
we go.
But I guess like I feel like everything we just described shows that we kind of understand the other type. And I think that that's one of the main reasons why type is helpful, is because that understanding is often enough. But I
Do
don't
you
know,
want
do
to go
you
into
think?
like a tip of how better to understand the opposite?
Yes. So
I would
question though is, do
say,
you believe that the understanding is enough in order to solve the conflicts, or to what extent does that?
oh, absolutely, it's not enough. I would say
Okay.
it's understanding is half the battle, definitely. I mean, not to get too right cheesy with
Interesting.
that, because
For me, I think
understanding it
it's
was.
most of the battle for me.
Oh, okay. I just think it's good to know. And I think that's great for people to open the door, to let themselves be into that realm, to open your mind to the space of understanding that somebody else is different from you. But there's also situations where you have to pick your battles with people you are really close relationships with. Is it worth, hashing out every single thing, that like hashing out your FI versus their TI every single time you talk? Absolutely not.
Hmm.
There are certain times when you have to give way and respect them and their kind of expression in the moment, and they do it the same to you. And I think that's like a big sign that you guys are already kind of acknowledging the space, that there's a different system of person that you're dealing with. Because at the end of the day, for how I understand it, my day isn't ruined having to give way to certain somebody for having an FE moment, and her day doesn't get ruined because of mine. So it's like that level of peace and understanding that I'm trying to aim for. A big
Yeah,
part of that was understanding that with FE, they want all the cards on the table. And I could draw on the same
absolutely.
mindset with TE in a way. So once we get to that same kind of realm, I can parallel it with the right function, whereas we still might be different, but we are still chasing after the same goal.
Yeah, that's actually has been a big help for understanding, is every time I can sort of see the TE in someone, I parallel that to how my FE works. But okay, so I just
Oh,
want to
be open. Open's
say,
another one.
yeah, so I just want to say that for me, I feel like understanding the other person is more than half the battle, but I think that that is ironically, because I'm an FE Dom, is that once I understand the person, meeting their needs is easy for me.
Mm-hmm.
But and the conflict for me often comes from when I'm not understanding where they're coming from, and so I don't know how
Mm-hmm.
to treat it.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just start with this. Why don't you share your advice for ENFPs that are struggling with getting along with an ENFJ, and any tips
Okay, well,
for
number
that?
one, they're
Mm-hmm.
not attacking you. The ENFPs who wonder, like, oh, she hurt me. She's not. They're not trying to. Like, I don't think there is unless it's explicit, and you should be able to feel it if it's explicit. Um, an ENFJ being personal with you would hurt way worse, I would think. But I feel like we misinterpret their SE as aggression, as some form of a weird kind of vibe, whereas all they really are believing, or they're more about, is this: they want to put it on the reality, right? They're the type of people who manifest things. They're teachers, they're cultivators, they're catalysts for change. Like, these are the type of people that you see them on stage, if not most of the time. And us as ENFPs, we tend to be a little bit on, I wouldn't say sidelines necessarily, but we are more of the exploratory counseling type. So we're not really the type to really put ourselves out there. So a big part of making sure you get along with another one is understanding that they're coming from a place where they want this to be tangible, and you're coming from a place where you want to play with the intangible. So understand that it's not personal if they're frustrated with you. I think is a big one I want to put out there. And at the same time, when they say things, oh, I don't relate to that, or I don't understand that, it's not an insult to you as the NFP. Because if you don't understand, if they don't understand, it doesn't mean that you failed as an NFP in explaining. It means that it's just different. Like, understand that they're having through a different, they look through a different lens.
Before you continue, I just have to add to that you're so right, that I had this conversation with Crystal, my ENFP, I think you guys know, but co-host of Synchronic Saturdays. Shout out to Crystal. So we were discussing, so if you don't know, Crystal and I offer typing services. That's linked below. We were discussing a potential way to change that up a bit. And gosh, what was it? Like, she proposed an idea or half of an idea, and I wasn't sure yet. I didn't know what I thought yet. And she thought that her idea was bad or not good enough, and really, like, or she thought that she wasn't like TIing well enough, and that she didn't like understand business enough. When what I realized is that the actual problem is that she was missing TE information from me. And so this is actually a tip for ENFPs and ENFJs getting along, that this is something that Crystal and I are trying. We haven't really tried this yet, but I think might be a solution. Is we realize that whenever she's confused by me or what she's saying doesn't make sense to me, it's because there's some sort of TE information that's missing. Because, and then the ENFP might think, oh, I'm wrong, I'm stupid, I can't figure this out. When really it's like you have 3 blocks and you're like missing a piece, and you should use your TE to ask the ENFJ a question of what the missing piece is, so that then you can figure it out. And so, I don't know, we realized this, and Crystal is just like, oh, so should I be delegating things to you more? And I'm like, is that difficult for you? And she's like, well, no, I think I could work with that. Like, does that kind of make sense?
I mean, let's put it this way. I'm not to read you to filth or anything, but like, let's say scheduling, for example. As an NFP, and as a person of an NFP who have dealt with TE, me, myself being this person, you will find out that NFJs do not stick to schedules. They are terrible with being able to organize their time slots in life. Not because they can't time block or color block their calendar. It's just that some things take precedence and priorities, and there are reasons behind it. A big thing I would say with NFJs that we as NFPs forget to understand is that you guys don't often share the TI reason, which would have been valuable for me in the TE to forgive or to like understand or to make sense of the situation. Whereas, again, here's the thing, that it could work vice versa. When I have an emotional expression of something, it often comes out of nowhere and out of the blue because we didn't share the FI to the FE, where if we did, it probably would have solved it quicker. It probably would have been like, the ENFJ would be like, hey, if you just told me that you were just bothered because this happened and blah, 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 then I would have extended the compassion to you and we wouldn't be getting into this argument. So absolutely. We expect things from people that sometimes we can't provide, and we're like, wait, it's because we're not asking the right question.
So that's what, like, I was kind of encouraging Crystal to, I was encouraging her to not beat herself up for being stupid and assume that there was a piece of information from me that was needed. And I will try better to explain things, but also
that's so cute.
She can ask me a question if she's confused.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we don't ask enough questions, or we don't ask the right questions. I don't know. Like, I just find it kind of fascinating because it is a big block of the opposite. Even though, I mean, socionically, EIE and IEE, we're quasi-identicals. So we share the opposite functions in literally the exact same stacking. So, like, we get each other from a wavelength. We just don't understand why we would prioritize that wavelength over the other.
So I guess I can add a bit on tips. Was there anything else you were going to say?
No, I think we get along.
We
get along really
I would say, like, if you're an ENFJ and you are annoyed with an ENFP, my main advice for you is, as we've kind of said before, don't expect the ENFP to communicate their emotions that much. And also, like, they might not need to vent as much as you need to vent. Don't assume that if they aren't reaching out to you to vent, that they have other people that they respect more that are closer to them that they're venting to, and that they just don't like you. Because would you agree that ENFPs don't necessarily need to vent to like their close friends?
I would say it depends. I pick on the person who is useful in the room to vent to. Because sometimes if I vented
Yeah,
to, let's say my
that's
venting
so
was
true.
related to work, I won't pick somebody who doesn't know my work, because then they won't be able to relate to what I'm going through.
Okay, that makes me realize that for me, I vent to my closest friends because they understand me. And I don't want to vent to someone that doesn't understand me.
Oh,
Because
okay. That's funny because I don't need them to understand me, if that
it's
makes
like the
sense.
TI. It's like the TI of I want them to see the whole system or
Oh
else their
yeah,
answers
no.
won't fit. But yeah, so I think that I think ENFJs and ENFPs can become fast friends, but ENFJs might not know where they stand with ENFPs if they are expecting the same sort of cards out. Where like,
Oh yeah.
so
I would say definitely make it known as the ENFP. Take it upon yourself. Take it as a responsibility for yourself to make that known to NFJs, and I'm including INFJs in this context as well, because sometimes I've run across appointments. I'm just gonna go back to appointments because it's a really quick example I can think of. A lot of them often have issues keeping to a time slot because, again, things come up. So, and sometimes what I thought we talked about it didn't translate the same way as, oh, so you did want it to be on Monday at this time or something like that. Sometimes it wasn't completely said forward. So I'm like, reiterate. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there and reiterate again to the NFJ, because it sends a signal to you guys that, hey, I'm putting an expectation here. That's the one, and it's an expectation that fits your TI that you want to fulfill for yourself. You can't force a person, you can't force an NFJ to do to do what you want, but you can put them in a situation where you both can compromise and come to
I think
a goal, I guess. I don't know. Make it
ENFJs
a
can
goal.
assume ENFJs can assume that ENFPs don't care. Um,
Yeah.
and
I've had an INFJ call me out for being too dismissive. It's a thing. Yeah.
yeah.
It's a
So
thing.
I feel like ENFJs might not feel obligated to meet the expectations of an ENFP if they don't
We
think that
don't
they care.
express it. Plus, we don't express the expectation.
Yeah.
Like, express it so the INFJ can even reason and explain herself to the person. I don't know. I feel like we need to have the talk. The talk is good.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I'd say that ENFJs, you either could get salty with the ENFP because you don't know where you stand and you think that they either have forgotten about you and have moved on to other friends when really they are just talking to lots of people and they still care just as much about you as they always have.
Yeah.
I think that because I understand that, I don't really have that problem as much anymore. But another thing too, though, is don't obligate them to do something that they don't want to do. Instead, if you're an ENFJ, just tell your friend, your ENFP friend, hey, this really matters to me more. Because I think, okay,
Oh, I like that. Actually, appeal to the FI, right? Appeal
yeah,
to the engine behind the NFP.
because I think that ENFJs, it's easy for us to ask for favors or like say what we want. Or like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, can I vent about this? Or hey, do you want to do this? Or whatever. And like, we don't always share like something that is just for fun that kind of just came up versus something that like really matters to us.
Mm.
And so I think that we can get salty if it seems like okay, if an ENFP were to just be following their FI and like say, no, I don't really want to go to that party this weekend, or I don't really want to do this. Um, if we like, if our requests, if they all sound the same, then like it's not fair for us to kind of expect, um, I don't know, an ENFP to like care. Like I don't know, we obligate by accident, you know?
Yeah, well, because we didn't know that it meant a lot to the person.
Yes.
For FE, they almost, I did say a lot of FE folks assume that it's obvious, but that's the
Yeah.
problem when it comes to an opposing system or an opposing polarity. we don't know, we're not aware of that as an FI. So because to us, we operate of, well, if you're feeling it, go. If you're not feeling it, don't. Why does it require other people? But then for FE, it's not that it requires other people. It's the mood that you're trying to convey, that you don't want to ruin it for the reality you can see in front of you, because that's your playground. So it, in a way, it's like reminding an NFP to be like, hey, I want you there because I want you. Like, I love you, I like you, all these
Yes.
kind of language. And you should have known that. Therefore, consider my feelings when I ask you these things. But then sometimes for us, we don't always know or don't always understand
Yeah.
that because it's not said. And for us, it's because I would say for myself as an NFP, I'm very much the person where I will randomly text a friend with a paragraph of why I really think they're awesome. Like, I bring out, the bells and whistles in those situations. But again, that could be misconstrued to an FE user, be like, oh, randomly? Like, I wasn't, there was no pinpoint, there's no string attached to this. Where did this come
Yeah.
from? And so it could be both confusing, not understanding that there are different ways of approaching an emotion, a feely situation, let's say, or how they
Yeah.
express themselves. Very different, very, very
So,
different.
for example, with Crystal, or like anytime I get really close with someone,
Yeah.
like, because Crystal and I are so close, if there is a crisis that I'm going through, if something happens, then I'll just start messaging a bunch of shit about like a play-by-play. And I've
Yeah.
done this to you too, of like just like sending a bunch of like word vomit. And like 99% of the time, I do not expect a response. But I've realized something annoying that I do is like about like 1% of the time I need a response. And so like from someone, just
Well, it's funny
anyone.
because I'm the opposite of that. I've sent you just single word like conclusions where I'd be like, I hate everything, and I have you no context, and I just say, oh, by the way, everything's fine, and you're like, wait,
Yeah.
did
Like
you? I need to
feel
know. I can't agree with you if I don't know.
like, I'm sure you know this too, like just from being friends with me, that like um a lot of the times when I complain about something or I'm venting about something, like it really isn't that serious, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
but sometimes
Because
it
you're not
is.
mad. Like, okay, this is another thing I want to
Yeah.
bring up. When an
Yeah.
FE person expresses, sometimes they're not actually mad. They're just frustrated. Like, I think we
Yeah.
misinterpret, because as for at least for myself, lots of expression of emotion I kind of deem as kind of too much sometimes, because I'm never that expressive. So when I see it, I'm like, oh, you must be really mad, because it took me work to get to that same level of
Absolutely.
to
Yeah.
match you. But then sometimes for you guys, because it's so natural, and emotions are a natural thing, or feelings are a
I'm just
natural
exclaiming
playground.
something.
Yeah. I remember
Yeah.
watching this movie where it's just like, I just said it in the moment. I didn't mean it. Like things like that happen.
Yeah.
And I don't know. My
So
first
I
instinct
actually
now.
hate that. I hate when people say that, but actually my INFJ says things like that.
So I would say the big tip in that is, don't fault them for your expectations of them that they could not match, because they are not you. That's, I
Yeah.
think, is a huge thing. They are not you. They were not raised like you. They did not have the same, let's say, privileges or background as you. Even if it seems similar, there is still going to be a difference in there, because their world view is completely different. I can't fault people now. At least that's how I think. I cannot fault people now for being different from me, because I know they go through something different. I like to roast people for being different from me, but that's in the realm of comedy, right? In the realm of
I
poking fun at everybody. But at the end of the day, it's like, you can't really, like, they're still
realize
human.
that when I vent to like you or Crystal or someone, that I do it for me. I don't
Yeah,
do it
smart.
because I want like, but I think also part of it is that I really want someone to witness my reality. I don't want to go through my reality for
That's a
long.
delicious one. You want someone to take a witness to your reality.
So it's not always like that. I think that ENFPs can assume that I'm looking for like free emotional labor when I'm not.
Yeah, because I guess because for me, it's very like, it doesn't really matter to me who watches or who doesn't.
Because
I'm
like,
very much like, whoever I'm with around, if I happen to be like, I don't know, sometimes I'm impartial like that to other folks when it comes to emoting, because again, my emotions go through different time zones. Like, I could feel it so intensely on the outside, but be totally over it in the inside. and then suddenly remember it, and then it just becomes complicated, and it's a lot of work.
One reason why I think we get along that I think other ENFPs can, I guess, learn from or something. But like if I'm like complaining about something or just like venting about something,
Mm-hmm.
you could just be like, yes, queen, or like it, or be like, oh, shut up, or like you don't have to like. I feel like some ENFPs would feel burdened by the ENFJ saying something and feeling like that there's one right answer, that they can't say how they really feel, or like that
Oh
they like,
yeah, that's a good point. The
or that they
fear
need to
of it.
say as much emotion as them. They need to match it.
Yeah, so the ENFJ doesn't actually expect you to match them.
Yeah,
That's the thing, right?
absolutely.
You guys don't actually expect us to do anything with it. You just
Yeah.
want us to sit there and listen. So I think it's a really important thing that you're not offending an NFJ if you don't have an answer. I think a big part of my
Yep.
learning growth, being associated with Js a lot, like J types, is sometimes even saying, I don't know, can be good for
Yes.
them. Just say it. Like, don't be like, pretend to give some half-ass answer about something that isn't really going to help them. Just say you don't know. And even if that kind of pain, like as a person like me, like sometimes it pains like, oh, I like keeping things open-ended. We have to understand as any users, we are keeping things open-ended. We are just changing our wording a little bit to satisfy the situation because that's what the other person wants to hear. Your solution is still going to be done later. So you're just creating more doors. As an any user, we forget that sometimes we think we're closing doors. No. You're still opening them. Don't worry about it.
Do you feel that way like with your ESFJ best friend?
Oh, I had to learn to have my own stance and positions on things because it wasn't like, it was very confused. Like for her, it's a big problem was I don't like plans being changed once we planned it. I don't want to hear that, oh, we're good on Friday, and then suddenly on the day of, you're going to ghost on me. She doesn't like that. And so when I am very not sure about how a day goes, we have the talk. We have a huge talk. Be like, okay, so this is happening to me this week. This is why I can't fully commit to what you're asking of me.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you that I'm going to try my best to make it happen. And the funny thing is I actually end up making it happen always. We still work it
Because you
out.
probably
So
feel less obligated or pressured.
yeah, I think it's the pressure thing. You want to relieve the pressure, the tension of the
Yeah.
planning. I think as a perceiver, that's a big problem of mine. But then again, like in a way, I just want to to reassure the person of like, hey, I will make it happen. Just want to let you know that, and the thing is I have a track record of being able to. So I guess that helps.
That reminds me, I relate to this as well, but I think ESFJs would be this way even more, and that they're okay with entertaining themselves. They would rather be alone on a weekend night than be looking forward to seeing a friend and then being disappointed when they can't come.
Yeah,
So I
because they
think,
would have planned something else, right? They
yeah,
would just do something else. Yeah.
yeah. So I've noticed this with my ESFJ relatives, and I do relate, but I feel like I'm a little bit more go with the flow because I sometimes never know what I'm going to be in the mood for. But
Mm-hmm.
like, I think for ESFJs especially, it's like, hey, like, it's okay if you're not free Friday. I just don't want to go all week with I'm not sure if I'm free Friday, because then it's like I don't have nothing to look forward to for the end of the week. Where like they're
Yes,
like
yes.
depending on that thing that they're looking forward to. And
Because you guys don't
so,
like limbo. The state
yeah,
of limbo is the frustrating thing for J types. And that's, as a P type, we almost can't even admit to ourselves sometimes, like we're in denial that we live our life in limbo. But
yeah,
that doesn't mean, again, like I can say to myself, I'm okay living limbo. But the minute I leave my house, let's say, and I associate with people, talk to people who aren't of my type, I can't just be like expecting people to just be like, oh yeah, let's all live in limbo. That's not how other
yeah.
people live. They don't know you.
It's, I feel like for me, what I relate to about that I think is a J thing, is that I emotionally always want something to look forward to. And if I don't have that, then it's kind of hard to drive me forward.
Because that's the
So,
motivational connection to it, right?
yes.
Yeah,
So I
absolutely.
think this, a lot of ESFJs might just be like wanting to look forward to the weekend. Maybe they're frustrated, maybe they're tired. And so maybe on a Monday they're like, okay, let's make plans this weekend to help me like have the emotional energy to get through the week.
And and the funny thing is, those are very valid things to think about. But then
Yeah.
I would say as an NFP, we sometimes invalidate it because we're in a mood. We're in like something going on.
Or even that's
I
like
think I've
us not sharing our reasons.
Or us not sharing our FI, be like, oh no, we didn't tell you that we were gonna have an FI day on that day or something. It's like, oh
Yeah.
no,
Oh
what
my
are we
goodness.
gonna do? Oh gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope people like this. Like, I hope people took something out of this because this is
Yeah.
it's quite actually quite interesting of a flow. I think we roasted each other quite well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess what I find interesting too, since I mean, I feel like I have thought harder about ENFPs and ENFJs getting along than any other type, just because with Crystal being as interested in type as me, and we've been friends for so long, that so much of our conversations were like about that. Like, at least like when with using type, that I think it's fun to kind of come up with solutions for what might solve these like common things.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I would
So,
say another thing to add too, like FE users tend
mhm,
to be really good at tact. You know, they could be tactful
yeah.
folks, and that's okay. I sometimes have tact, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I come off professional, sometimes I have a professional secretary voice I could use, but it's not consistent enough. Again, it's like I would say type is the celebration of differences.
Hmm.
So we need to keep that mindset,
Yeah.
especially in friendships.
Yeah. One last advice I'll give, and then
Mhm.
I can end this, is just really, ENFJs, you'd be so surprised if you just voiced how you are a little bit more, how much easier it would be. Like if you were venting and then you're just like, don't worry, you don't need to respond to this. Like if you just like said something like that, that would change everything. Like we don't like voice our expectations, or even like there's times whenever I invite someone to do something and I am really looking forward to it and I would be upset if they canceled, and there's times where I would want to like reassure someone of like, don't worry about it, I just am inviting you so that if you happen to be free you can come. Like
Mm.
I think that we need to like explain ourselves
I mean, and
more.
as a side gig to that, as
Hmm.
an NFP, having to explain to ourselves, like, so that we can ease the disappointment that the other one feels. Because I would say
Yeah.
that in situations, there are sometimes things that we might say that might give off or trigger the wrong impression on the NFJ. For us, we kind of like, at least for myself with FI, I used to think that this is my FI being what it is. You know, I don't take things necessarily too seriously or too personal for a lot of stuff, but sometimes I can come off insensitive when I say certain things and not realizing I said it in such a TE way that it came off very heartless. And then energy is
Hmm.
like, oh, so you're just not gonna go visit me because you just didn't want to. And it's just very cold and down to the count or whatever. It's like, explain yourself, be a little warmer. uh, Understand that they kind of want to hear some reasoning at least, even if it sucks. Honestly, even if the reasoning sucks, they still want to
Hmm.
hear it because at least it's something in the open world, right?
Hmm.
I feel like it's still good to have the convo. Don't remove the conversation from the room is what I'm kind of going at.
And that's
Have,
where I think that knowing type is really helpful, because a lot of people, if they are really different, they might have tried to have a conversation once or twice and it went so wrong that they might think that it's easier to just avoid it.
yeah,
But if you understand the tools you're working with, it's a lot easier to have a
absolutely.
conversation.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Nate. Again, I'll have like Nate's podcast and Patreon info below, and also the
Oh wait,
workshop I'm
yeah.
hosting.
Actually, before I
Yeah.
forget to the plug,
Mhm.
I mean, I started
Yeah.
season 3,
Oh
so this is
yeah,
a
tell
whole
us
it's
about
a
it.
totally different channel now. So for folks being interested, like, what are we talking about? If you want to see any in action, I am joined with a co-host, JC and ENTP.
Mhm.
We go back and forth. We talk all kinds of topics, and I think that's a really good example of what any looks like and how we go about in the real time. I mean, we are an objective function because it's out there in the world, objects. So I just want to
Mhm.
say that we've started a whole new channel. So maybe link that one instead of,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't realize there was a different channel.
Yeah, we've
I'm so
shifted.
excited about.
I've yet to make a new welcome mat for it. I haven't made one yet. So yeah.
I thought it was on the same channel, but I know that I saw the rebrand. It's amazing. Definitely, I'll link that. Check it out. It really is a lot of NE. I watched when I watched the first episode. I'm like, whoa! Now we're talking about
Okay.
this. Now we're talking
Warning,
about
first episode is about an hour. It's not, that's probably not the best dosage you should go. The next episodes are like 20 minutes long. So hopefully
this.
that's okay. As a back going back to this, check out Megan's, like, what is it, your course? exactly? The
Oh,
membership
my
thing?
membership group.
I think
Yes.
it's fantastic. I mean, I've been to a few
Thanks.
classes already,
Oh
and
yeah, give me
it's
a little
so girl like
pitch.
the work. No,
I'll put that
the
link below.
I know, right? It's like the no. I think it's really good. I think the entire premise and the entire format is well. For one, first of all, I've talked about this with Crystal as you were having your moment with the course.
Hmm.
It's like your natural habitat. So if you want to see Megan at her prime, at her full-on
Thank
superhuman
you.
form, this is what you do. That's what you go to. Definitely sign up if you can, or when you can, and do show up for at least one or two classes because you get to see how she facilitates the room. I would say we do need a little bit more diversity because there's a lot of NFJs who were like, oh my goodness, let's talk about NFJs. And I'm like, great, that's wonderful. But there's only like
Yeah.
one NTP or two NTPs and like one SFJ hanging around.
Yeah. And then yeah. So if you are interested, the next workshop is June 28th. I also post 4 extra videos per month, just random,
Oh
whatever
yeah,
I'm
and
thinking about in the group.
your previous ones that you've done are also up online for people
Yes.
to see and to view. So if you also are unsure yet of joining, like showing your face or having a conversation yet, but you want to join the membership and you want to know what she offers, definitely go up and see her resources because her Jungian takes, I would say, her Jungian
Mm.
understanding, her knowledge has been very refined.
Thank you.
It's something that's interesting and I
Thank
think
you.
is not always well talked about in a lot of tech communities. I mean, sometimes we like to look at
Yeah.
MBTI as for fun, but this girl likes to go for it a little bit more serious with a goal. So
Yeah,
maybe
I think
that's
that
something more your edge.
I've been posting a lot less of like one-off videos because I've been refining my understanding a lot, and I'm
Yes.
glad that you're saying that could come off in like the workshops that I've been
Oh, it
doing.
shows. Girl, it
So
shows.
yeah,
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of NITI, like diving deep.
Yes,
But
yes,
yeah,
yes. And I'm
so
not doing this because I'm biased. I've been like very like you know I can be real and super blunt about it.
yeah.
So like nothing is off my the radar in this sense. Like I like to
Mhm.
read ENFJs to filth because I can't hide anything to ENFJs.
Yeah.
Like FE DOMs in general can look at me and be like, I know when you're being fake. And I'm like, oh, so I have to I feel like it's just right that I bring it back to you. You
Yeah,
know?
so if you join now, like it's $33 a month. You can cancel anytime. But if you join now, you can get access to the last 2 months of workshops, both of which were like over 90 minutes each. And there's probably like 8
That's a
other
lot.
videos in
That's a
there.
lot of it's a lot of
So
information. Take notes.
yeah.
Because I took
Thank
notes. That's the
you.
thing. I took notes when I took the class. So y'all, it's fun. But yeah, no, to definitely take notes. It's something to take away from, especially widening your worldview. I mean, you and I are both really into spiral dynamics and opening your mental
Hmm.
territory to things.
Hmm.
So that's a big part of it as well. If you really want to know type for what it is, nitty gritty, go for it. I mean, you can also check on my account, my Patreon too. For like
Yeah,
two
check out his
bucks, you can
Patreon.
get into it.
Yeah.
Although I'm not as formulated as you are, I feel like yours is very good. So that's definitely a thing. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm tackling a completely different avenue
Well,
anyway. So
I'll just say too, don't worry about it because okay, well, I just have to
don't
say
worry about
like
it. Don't.
no, I just have to say like I'm a J, but when I started YouTube, it was let's just throw things at the wall and see if I can make this a habit. And it's like only now after like 3 years of being kind of like throwing things that I'm like, okay, I feel like this is what I want to say. So it's like, even though I'm a J, it's like, it's still like, I feel like that exploratory process is so
Yes,
important.
yes. I mean,
So
I
like,
also
I
think
know
it's
you know
very
that,
on brand
but
for you as an ENFJ, like to hold a course for like learning type and being the facilitator aura, because
Mhm.
I would say it definitely showcases your strengths. It comes out. So people, check it out. Definitely go
Thank
for it.
you. Thank you for that. I guess.
Shameless plug.
Yes, thank you. Because I'm afraid to plug myself. I'm always like,
My
and we
eyes.
about
See me
us.
rolling it? I was like, oh, she's gonna undersell with her bad TE again.
And
Okay,
it's
like.
like, and let's see if I can set this on as fast as possible. So it's like low.
I mean, let put it this way, as a little secret to the people who might watch this video, don't undersell if you're an FE user. I've seen people, FE users try to sell their books for like $10 and an SCJ selling it for 50. When I would say, if you flip it, one who really gonna trust the thinker talk about
I
feeler
bought a book.
issues.
I bought a book from an NFJ friend, and if you're listening, hello, shout out to you. I don't want to say your name, but I bought a book that an NFJ friend wrote, and then they Venmoed me back the money for it and said I don't have to pay for it because we're friends. And I was thinking, no, I'm your friend. I want to support you.
That was my issue too with that. I was like, no. Understand, as feelers, this is the thing we all struggle with, is being able to monetize our life. Lord,
I know, right? Well, thank you for joining me, and hopefully I'll see some of you guys in the workshop. Nate will be there as well. I don't know. Maybe you won't.
We'll see. We'll see.
Okay.
I will say. I mean, back to that whole thing we just talked about.
Sorry,
Right?
I was like, oh gosh. But anyway, thank you, and yeah, have a wonderful rest of your day.